alarm strapped in what we call create mode. Oh boy!
It's the universe's most twisted televised spectacle, King of Meat!
Hi, I'm Johnny Hopper. I'm the studio head of Glowmade in the UK, and we're making King of Meat.
So, Johnny Hopper, where did the idea for King of Meat come from?
So we basically sat down in the pub a few years ago, the British tradition of making games in pubs, and we thought we just started talking about the stuff we liked. And Adam, who's our art director, he is obsessed with David Bowie's Labyrinth, the movie, and Mike Green, our design director, loves WWE, WrestleMania, and we just sort of thought, well, what if we just take both of those ideas and make them into a video game? And then we ended up with King of Meat.
It's funny, it reminds me a lot of, there was a game Ubisoft made a few years ago called The Mighty Quest for Epic Loot. Do you remember that? I see a lot of similarities.
Yeah, no, we know of that game, and it is really cool. It's sort of superficially similar in that there's quests, there's loot, and there's a dungeon. But I think actually the gameplay, the sort of the party action, and the sort of the co-op kind of hack and slash stuff is really unique and different.
What are some of the challenges when you have to present a game where users create an experience?
One of the biggest challenges is making it accessible and fun, and trying to make it not feel like a tool. You know, the whole game is made in the game. Our level designers have made all of the content in the game as though they were users. So we're sort of really kind of road testing that stuff. We don't want it to feel like you're clicking and dragging and stuff like you would in a sort of like a 3D package or whatever. We wanted to make the act of creating fun itself and making it accessible for everybody to try.
Yeah, your UI looks super intuitive, especially on console. Like, what were some of the challenges when making that work on a controller?
Well, I mean, so what we did was we actually started there. We started with a gamepad, and we said it's got to work on a gamepad. It's got to be accessible on a gamepad. And then once we know we can do that, we can go, okay, keyboard and mouse. We've got way more buttons to play with, and try and sort of break some of the paradigms so that it works kind of efficiently and nicely for keyboard and mouse, as well as working nicely for gamepad. But you know, yeah, we tried to make it like, if you can press one button all the time, and you're going to kind of get the right answer. We tried to make it consistent and really easy to use.
No, talk about a little bit how people design their dungeons. You have like a room system, you have a trap system. It's all very well designed.
Thank you. So the thing we wanted to do, like I said, we wanted it to be accessible, and one of the hardest things to solve as a creator is, where do I start? Because if you give people a blank piece of paper, if I said to you, draw a picture please, you'd be like, well, what? So we had this room system so that you can just kind of stamp down spaces to play in, and you can do that. You can get like 5 rooms and put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and run from start to finish, and you've got a level in about a minute. You know, it's not a very good level, but it is a level. And once you've done that, that kind of really kind of frees people up to start being creative and expressive within those spaces, because they kind of understand the constraints. Because you place down this room and then you can completely change it. You can change all the floor, and you can add traps, you can redecorate it, you can put all your bad guys in, and then once you've done all that, you can add logic. There's so many kind of layers of options to let players make unique things.
Now, your game has a lot of humor, and it's based in humor. Talk about some of the challenges of creating that, and take us into the writing room and how you guys designed the style and the type of humor in your game. Mike
Green, who's our design director, his kind of mantra has basically been, if it's really dumb, it can go in. You know, so we kind of went there, and you know, we have a lot of fun. We have a lot of laughs when we're making this game. There's a kind of a sort of British game development tradition. You know, a lot of us have worked at Lionhead. Myself, Mike, and Adam all met at Lionhead, so we've got that kind of fable, kind of humour, sort of through line, I suppose. But yeah, we worked with some amazing writers. So our narrative director Rihanna and writer Sophie, and we worked with a guy called Mike McCafferty and Jim Rossignol. They're all hilarious, and they're all very dry, and we've just kind of, it's quite a dark undertone to some of the humour, and it's I think it's quite a uniquely kind of British thing, I think. So we really had a good time doing that. Yeah.
You guys mashed together a lot of different like types of humor. I saw like the Coliseum, and inside the Coliseum are cubicles where the monsters work. You guys had a lot of fun with it, it seems.
Yeah, we didn't set out to make anything that's like really political or anything like that. But it's not deliberate. But it's just us kind of being dumb and poking fun at stuff. You know, one of the things I like is that, you know, I play the game every day, and I still laugh at the gags that turn up, and there's all these like beautiful bits of ambient dialogue in the plaza area, and it's sort of the game. And I can say this because it's not me, but the game has become sort of effortlessly funny. Like it's just there's gags, there's throwaway jokes, and it's just amusing and delightful to kind of be in. So it's a really nice kind of place to hang out, I think, just because of all this kind of content and crazy weird characters that we've ended up with.
And what are some of the challenges in creating a co-op experience in today's gaming landscape?
We've kind of got all of the challenges. So we've got it's a co-op game, it's multiplayer, it's a user-created game, it's our own technology. We've kind of decided to have all the problems. I think co-op's a really cool thing. You know, I think people love to do it. We love to kind of play together and trying to make people feel like they're really kind of playing together, but also having this kind of like element of slight competition. And I think the game's kind of netted out in this really nice way where you can kind of go into a level with your friends and you can tool around, you can shove each other off ledges and stuff, and you can lightly kind of mess about with your sort of teammates, but then you kind of realize, oh, actually we need to kind of get through this dungeon together. So kind of trying to get that sort of that balance of reward and risk and silliness to get that right with the kind of level goals was probably one of the biggest challenges, I think.
Your game has a lot of mechanics. You have shooting mechanics, you have melee mechanics, you have platforming mechanics. Like, what was it trying to marry all those together so the game flowed well? It was
a challenge, and it's and it's got some beautiful animation, and it's multiplayer, and trying to get those kind of things together. You know, I think it comes back to like what sort of game do we want to achieve? What do we want to feel like? We wanted the game to feel like this kind of really nicely mechanically tight sort of combat platformer, but also we wanted it to be silly. We also wanted it to be user created. And coming back to your earlier question about like challenges of user creation, having game mechanics and actually trying to communicate how to build a game with game mechanics to people who are not game designers has been one of the really kind of interesting and sort of enlightening challenges, I think.
Talk about the characters you can play in the game. Do you have a class system or is it more of a moveset system?
So with the game itself is classless, so you choose your weapon, your loadout. The idea is that you can reconfigure yourself to match your teammates. So if you're going into a level that happens to have loads of kind of like long distance ranged enemies, you might want to reconfigure your sort of secondary weapon thing, or you might want to have a support character or whatever. The loadout that you choose is entirely different from your cosmetics, because we really wanted people to be able to express themselves with our sort of dress-up system. So it's really kind of free form and really expressive as well. So you can change all your kind of costume pieces, but then you can put crazy decorations and stickers all over yourself. There's not a lot of limits there, which is really, really fun because you get some really, really weird creations. But that's the joy of it. But then on top of that, you can actually then go, okay, I want to have a sword, or I'm going to have a hammer or whatever, and that doesn't affect any of your cosmetic choices. So, you know, and level beyond that is you can level up those kind of weapon archetypes. So you can change the cosmetic of your hammer, but you still kind of maintain the sort of leveling up of the archetype itself.
Yeah, speaking of your cosmetic options, like you're one of the rare games I've seen, if you have a backpack, you can actually place it in a different area, or a pin. You can actually place it anywhere in the body instead of just like a stagnant spot. Like, talk about your customization options, because they're pretty unique.
So I've got this obsession with dealy boppers and googly eyes, and every game I do, I really want there to have googly eyes in it. And once you can put googly eyes on stuff, you really want to put them everywhere. And we just thought, in some ways, it's actually easier to let it be freeform in terms of like the technological challenges. But yeah, we just were like, well, what can we do to let players have fun and be creative? And it was let them place stuff everywhere. And and that's where you get the sort of the beauty of it. That's where when you having kind of user tools, when you give them interesting kind of tools to use and interesting ways to use them, that's where you get surprised, and that's where you get the really cool kind of outcomes, I think.
Now, your game is co-op. You feature split screen.
We're not featuring split screen at launch.
Talk, because I think that's a misconception. People look at a game, they're like, why isn't it split screen? Because there's so much that goes into a game, you can't just add split screen, right? So talk a little about, give us like a little insight about like why certain games like your game don't feature split screen.
So if you're running a game in split screen, you basically have to render the game twice, and that takes quite a lot of resources, a lot of memory, and so forth. And and for us, it's desire was to make a game that looks beautiful and runs at 60 FPS, across the board. Like, that's our sort of our baseline, because that's where the game feels the best. So we kind of really just went down that route of going, how do we make the one screen amazing? And I think we've got a good result out of that, I think.
What's a big misconception about game design in 2025, do you think, from a consumer looking on the outside?
That's a really interesting question. I think one misconception could be, because there's so many accessible tools and ways to do it, it's easy. Game design is really hard. I'm not a game designer myself. I'm a programmer by trade. Mike Green is our design director. He's an incredible game designer. And it's a skill. It's a real skill. It's not just think of a fun thing. Everyone can think of ideas. Ideas are cheap.
Ideas are really cheap, yes.
Implementing them, but then taking that one idea and making it mesh with the 100 other ideas that are already in the game, that is the real skill and the real challenge. And most of game design happens in spreadsheets.
What advice would you give to future, game developers out there, maybe in high school, about making games? Where can they start? Where can they go? Where could they go to end up where you are today as a studio head?
Well, I mean, these days there's so many opportunities, and ways of kind of making games that there weren't even 10 years ago or 20 years ago. The advice would be just make a thing. Start with Unity or Unreal as an engine, as it's got so many kind of tools in there, and there's so many assets and so much community support. You make a thing and then do it again, and then do it again. The first one you make will be rubbish, and the second one will be a bit better. The third one will be a bit better. So you have these ideas and put them into action, and then you end up with a showcase of here's the stuff I can do. Because when you're, say, a graduate or fresh out of school, people who are hiring, they're not looking for these kind of grizzled game development veterans. What they really want, certainly what we really want, is somebody with joy for their craft, skill, and a kind of a weird brain that they can be imaginative with.
Now, I have to ask before I wrap this interview up, is like you used to work for Lionhead Studios, which is an old studio. I mean, people don't know what that is. A lot of the younger people don't. I do, of course. Amazing games on PC, and then Fable, and then all these other games that were fantastic. What's it been like seeing this landscape of game development change since your time at Lionhead Studios, and what's different about it?
Yeah, I mean, things have changed a lot. I've been in the industry for 25 years now, and so I started out at Lionhead in 2004, and that was when we were working on with Fable 1 and a game called The Movies, which was this kind of game that was about 2 years before YouTube, and it was just too early. So Lionhead was then purchased by Microsoft and then closed in, I think, 2015, maybe it was 2016.
We previewed their last game maybe 3 years ago. Yeah.
There we go. And so what happened then was, Lionhead's based in and Glowmade is based in a town called Guildford, which is just outside of London in the UK, and this has become this kind of incredible hotspot for game development. And actually, Lionhead as a studio of like 200 people then got closed, and then where do they all go? They don't all leave. So suddenly there were loads of kind of smaller studios starting up. We started up actually about a year before Lionhead closed, so we kind of got in there early. But like companies like Media Molecule was made originally from Lionhead veterans, and I worked there for 5 years as well. So I've had that kind of interesting route through the kind of the local scene. But what you see now is you see a lot more kind of smaller studios. There's a lot more support. There's a lot more ways of building games. Remote working, and again, things that didn't really exist in the same way 20 years ago. It's easier to start a studio. It's easier to make a game. The downside of all of that is that there's a lot more of them. There's a lot more studios. There's a lot more games, and kind of less money as well. So it's an interesting balance. But yeah, the landscape has shifted a lot, and there's a lot more kind of flexibility in how you want to work and how you want to build these kind of projects.
I feel like now more than ever, people are starting to realize that it's not the studios, it's the people that came there. Blizzard, EA, BioWare, these studios have been around forever. Lionhead, but it wasn't the brand name, it was the people working on the games that are retiring or moving around. And I think that it's starting to come back. People are realizing that this is what the game design is. We need good people making games, not an IP attached to a studio where nobody who originally started that studio is there anymore.
The people who kind of are running the game, are leading the game, are absolutely instrumental in setting the tone for what it is. Even if you're 5 games into an IP, the people that are running it are still going to be changing it into what they kind of want it. So, when we're kind of making King of Meat, I'm really aware that the way I act, the way I kind of say things and direct or whatever, is actually going to not only influence the team and how they work and what they do, but actually it'll influence the game as well. But the really important thing is not just the leadership, but the team themselves, because they're the ones who have creativity and the talent and the skill, who are actually building the game. And with King of Meat, it's really interesting because it's like you sort of said, it's like there's so many different things going on, and there's so many different ideas and weird things and mechanics. It's impossible to trace that back to a single individual. It's definitely not me. It's not Mike. It's not Adam. Although we've been trying to just steer the ship. But if one day I hope you come and visit us, and you'll kind of meet the team, and then you'll go, oh, now I get it, because the game is a reflection of the team. You can kind of see all of their weirdness and their joy and their humour in the game, and that it sort of all comes out of how they work together and how we all kind of work and build a project.
When does your game come out, and what platforms are you aiming for at launch?
So we're not announcing a release date just yet, but we are at PC, PlayStation, and Xbox at launch.
Any plans for Nintendo Switch 2?
I couldn't possibly comment.
And then will you feature cross progression? If I build a dungeon on Xbox, can I have my same dungeon on PC on my same account?
Yes, absolutely. So we have cross progression kind of natively. We use this there's an Amazon Games ID thing which allows that to happen, and it works natively. Cross play works natively as well. So yeah, we're trying to make it really easy for you to play and to enjoy the game.
And where can they go to find more information about King of Meat?
Go to kingofmeat.com and sign up to be a tester.